Wow. So the Senate comes back into session tomorrow. So exciting. Everyone's coming back into town. Got to get stocked up with all your stuff. The one person who's really panicking, however, is Javita Carranza. She's just, rushing to TJ Maxx by the minute, stocking up on scarves before Nancy Pelosi shows back into town. Hey, good afternoon, everybody. This is LALATE. Hope you're good and safe. This is Afternoons LALATE, our 2-hour programming block that starts every day at 3:30. Thank you for joining me. It starts at the check, then goes to hazard pay, then FPUC, and finally rent. If there was ever a day to like a video in very balmy, horrible weather conditions here in Los Angeles, this is the one to like and subscribe to this channel. This is part of our 3.5-hour schedule of programming every day on LALATE that starts early in the morning with Mornings LALATE at 8:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time and ends late at night with Evenings LALATE. Big exciting news about hazard pay today. As what I had been predicting for several weeks continues to manifest. Yes, more protests are erupting across this country as businesses continue to refuse to pay hazard pay. If you did not tune into yesterday's broadcast, I detailed protests at Kroger and at Whole Foods over the weekend for people who are not paid for hazard pay, who are just fed up. Well, it's continuing. 2 more locations, different businesses confronted by frontline workers minutes ago. Before I get to that detail, let me get to some other frontline workers, some of the most important ones, firefighters, who are battling fires right here in Los Angeles. These are the latest updates. The Bobcat fire, which started overnight here in Los Angeles County, very close to where I am, but I'm not endangered, so thank you for your messages. Started on 9/6. It's at 1,800 acres, and it's about 0% contained. The Valley Fire in San Diego started on 9/5. It's at 9,800 acres, burned 1% containment. The evacuation orders are in effect for the community of Carve Acre, which is southeast of Alpine. El Dorado Fire, which is in San Bernardino, just east of LA County. 7,000 acres burned, 5% containment. Evacuations orders are in place for Oak Glen, Yucaipa Ridge, Mountain Home Village, and Forest Falls. And as one viewer asked me in a tweet earlier today, and I forgot to mention, they said, what is causing all these fires? The last fire, which I just reported, the one in San Bernardino, was started by, and this is not a joke, fire officials confirmed that it was started by a smoke-generating pyrotechnic device used during a gender reveal party. Awful. 7,000 acres burned because of that. Finally, the Creek Fire, which is in Fresno, and a lot of my viewers are near this. It's at 73,000 acres burned and still getting quite bad. Off the coast, Paulette and Renee will be new tropical storms announced later today on LALATE and by the National Hurricane Center. They're not near the Atlantic yet, but they are near the Atlantic coast, but they are in the Atlantic. That'll be Tropical Storm Paulette and Tropical Storm Renee. All right, so South Sound grocery workers went on protests. Here we go. More protests are erupting across the country as businesses continue to refuse to pay hazard pay. This is the latest one. It is a business called South Sound. It's a grocery store, and 40 workers and their supporters showed up demanding hazard pay. Picket signs said, hey, what do you say? We deserve hazard pay. It's very wonderful because it's clearly the title of the article. It's the subject of the article. Hazard pay is all over it. What I had been talking about for weeks was the failure of broadcast news to really put hazard pay anywhere in the discussion for just months. Viewers were saying, hey, you're the only one that talks about hazard pay. Well, I had hoped that unions, I had hoped that workers would push the envelope, protest, put this story front page, and now they are. Hey, hey, what do you say? We deserve hazard pay. The workers who represent the United Food and Commercial Workers Local 367 Union have demanded the leadership of a major grocery store reinstate the hourly bait pump they introduced at the beginning of the pandemic that they then discontinued. Now, what's so incredibly great news about this is exactly what I had been reporting for weeks. I mean, you know, people say, how do you see this coming? Because it's, sometimes I think it's very obvious, but maybe for other people it's not. I said that this failure of the federal government to pay hazard pay, this failure of businesses to pay hazard pay, is going to erupt into protests. And the businesses that will get hit first are grocery stores, and the people who will be protesting are unions, because grocery stores are generally unionized, and the unions are very well organized, and they're not going to have it. They're just not going to sit back and do nothing. So here we go. Tracy Lopez, Communications Director for UFCW Local 367, told the local channel that they had hazard pay in the earlier part of the year when the pandemic first hit, but then they stopped it. For example, Kroger had $2 an hour for hero pay in May, and then thank you pay shortly thereafter. And Kroger owns Fred Meyer and QFC, but since then they haven't offered it. These were the latest protests in this area. It's like Black Friday every day, she says. She says the businesses are absolutely flooded with customers. If I can't get it from my employer, at least I can get it from the customers that are essential. So who am I doing it for? That's why I want to go to work every day. So they basically have food on their table and the items they need on a daily basis that they wouldn't get otherwise. This is not the only protest as reported in this news article. There was another protest planned for Fred Meyer on another street on Thursday, which was scheduled to include speakers and a banner, but that was then rescheduled. Nationwide, which has UCFD has 1.3 million members, is continuing 26 planned protests across the country. Boy. The union now confirmed that it has more than 100 grocery store workers' deaths. Awful. And over 14,000 grocery store workers have contracted COVID-19 in this union. This is just one union. This is not the only grocery union across the country. This is just a press release by UFCW. 100 deaths from COVID-19 and 14,000 infections. That was one story. Another story, Virginia. Hospital employees. So this is not grocery, this is now hospital. On Saturday, a dozen VA employees gathered outside of James Haley VA Hospital in Tampa. Oh, I'm so sorry. This was in Tampa, not Florida, not VA like Virginia. And they said we're advocating for hazardous duty pay and PPE because if this was the first wave, I don't want to see what would happen the second wave when it looks like it. She's an employee, and she's also a president of the AFGE Local 547. So here we go again. Another union. This is now a hospital union and another state now in Tampa, Florida. Medical workers across the country are setting to start to protest. The VA won't recognize hazardous duty pay, but it's there. We're in a pandemic. If it's not hazardous, why do you think we have 6 feet of distancing rule? I love her. She's really smart. Boy. Bellamy White says the unions nationwide had to fight to get adequate PPP for our veterans. Help us protect our veterans and our employees. We have employees that got infected by COVID-19. We had, at one point, 125 employees with COVID-19. Awful. We're here because we do support our veterans and we want to protect our veterans. The hospital issued a statement. The health and well-being of the facilities, staff, and veterans is always our top concern. These protests do not reflect our robust safety practices, which proven effective. These demands have already been met. As to the first protest, there was no comment from the employer for me to cite as their side of the story. What's really quite shocking as you sit back here is that this is where I said it's going to go. I've seen the comments of the viewers of this channel. Some of you have talked about protests just for second stimulus check alone. Some of you have talked about protests for stimulus in general. But I had certainly predicted protests for hazard pay. This theme is the same. And let me explain what's going on, because it's sometimes a little confusing. There's hazard pay when we talk about it for the federal government. You probably came here because you're thinking about the HEROES Act hazard pay provision of the HEROES Act bill that calls for $10,000 for people who worked as essential workers during the pandemic, you're thinking about that thing. But what I've tried to educate my viewers about is that that's just federal hazard pay. There's also state hazard pay. Some states have paid frontline workers money, not $10,000, usually a couple $100. They've paid city employees, county employees. But then also there is private hazard pay, being paid by your employer to you when you are by a private business paid to you because of your work. And I've always contended that's where the protests and the upsurgence and the reaction is going to happen. Because there's a disconnect. And let me explain the disconnect. And this is so important to understand. The disconnect is that, first of all, the employers don't call this hazard pay. They don't want to call it hazard pay because they don't want to say the environment is hazardous. They call it bonus pay. That's the first thing. Second, they tie hazard pay to how many people are in the store, which is just, I mean, it's just Nancy Pelosi logic. It's just screwy. Hear the accents. I'm not from New York, but there's like a New York accent come out when I was screwy. Screwy. I'm from Long Island. It's screwy. It really is screwy. It's basically saying, hey, in March, there were people out the door waiting in line to get to the grocery store. We had a 3-hour wait for people to come to the grocery store. Now we have, at most 25 people in the grocery store. Why are we paying you? Why are we paying you a bonus? There's nothing bonus about you have a reduced work schedule. You have a reduced clientele in the store. There's not a lot of people in here. Why should we pay you a bonus? That's the theory of it. The reality of it is has nothing to do with how many people are in the store. The reality of it has to do with how rampant is COVID-19 at the moment. So as COVID-19 cases continue to stabilize or increase, then the threat is still there. It is still as hazardous to work in the environment. The hazard of the environment has nothing to do with how many people are in the store. It has to do with how hazardous the work environment is because of a pandemic where a virus can be spread. The comments from the employers also are consistently the same. They say, well, we've created a safe work environment. Okay, that's fine. Thank you so much. If you didn't, everyone would be suing your asses. It's like, hello. Yeah, we created a safe work environment. Yeah, I got that. Thank you, Captain Obvious. And that's not my question. That's not the reason why these people are protesting. They're protesting because you haven't paid them a bonus or hazard pay. And so hence we're there. What is this coming down to? It's coming down to a very simple factor. Money. They think that they're not making the type of profit margins they were in the spring, where they were making bonzo revenue, just runaway, massive surges of revenue. And they're like, fine, pay them some bonuses. Okay, now they're looking at their revenue. They're like, oh, we're not making a whole lot. Don't pay them anything. Don't pay them any hazard pay. That's not how it's supposed to work. And I told you before that as COVID-19 increases, as businesses don't pay hazard pay, there's two things that are going to happen. One, people are not going to show up. They're just not going to show up. They're not going to show up for work. And the reason why they're not going to show up to work, and some people may not agree with what I'm about to say, but it's true because I've ran the articles. In some states, there are other jobs you can get that you can work at home and make a little bit less, but be with your children all the time and not be exposed to COVID-19. And people are quitting these hazardous work environment jobs to take a less salary, but be in a safer work environment. It's just happening. So the first threat is that people just don't go back to work. The second threat is that they will go back to work, but they're going to organize protests. And they're going to organize protests, and they're going to grow and grow and grow. And I've always said it's going to be based upon the strength of the unions. With that, there's a lot to be prepared about. Hazard pay, as the bill itself, will not be introduced this week, as I've been detailing extensively on this channel. What the bill you see this week will not have hazard pay in that. I assume you got that because I've done that for over 2 videos, so that's why I didn't lead on that. Where will hazard pay be? Likely in the second bill. But I got to tell you, this first bill is going to be so critically important. If you watch the video right before this, I said it may default to executive order. After that, we're going to see everything sort of change very quickly. So keep your positive thoughts up because there's a lot of things changing. In a day in which it's incredibly hot, I am literally drenched from head to toe if you can't see it, but that's the wonders of filming. I really think I deserve a subscribe, don't you think? I think I do. So give me a good subscribe. Give me a good hitting the bell. If you haven't subscribed or you don't have a red button next to your name, go into the pinned comment in this video by me, the pinned comment with a pin. I have a link to show how to unsubscribe and resubscribe to ensure that you are a subscriber. I respond to subscribed comments first before non-subscribed comments because I know you're part of the community. I recognize you. I see you're there. Then coming after that, can you like this video with the thumb? Not down here. Put the thumb in the video, in the frame of the camera, dude. So they see the thumb. They won't see it down here. Put it up here. So that this video appears higher in the ranks. It really does help. Coming up next is FPUC. Great news about that. Boy, more great news about LWA every single day. And then finally, rent. And don't miss that rent video. Those rent videos are so important. As always, stay informed, stay smiling, stay focused, stay cool, and stay of LA before.